Committee Member Ridgway,
Here.
Committee Member Earl, Committee Member Shoemaker, Committee Member Tucker. Thank you. Thank you. What you'll see in front of you for your report for this period is a 6-month look back. Um, as you know, we have biannual meetings now. The meeting in January is where you get the full report, which you'll actually have to go back to council and make your recommendations on the report itself and your findings. So for this meeting here today, we'll look for the period of January through June of the calendar year 19. These are unaudited numbers, therefore they're kind of a glimpse of what you're seeing as of the date I printed the report. Just a kind of a quick overview of what you'll be seeing in the future when you have the actual audit report. You'll be having the supplement that goes into the general fund, which is not in your current report, of 1.2 million. Also, the OPEB allocation, which will be in the report, and also your pension liability. And I believe there is maybe possibly one CalCard transaction that is still not posted. So you will see adjustments on that standpoint. But you will see within this report pretty much the bulk of the information itself. Okay? So we'll kind of go through the information. We'll look through the revenues. So from January through June, you can see a pretty consistent amount of an average of like 153,000, lowest being about 126,000, highest being about 171. Well, actually 175 or 195. Sorry. The next line item you see is the reimbursement from U.S. Marshals. What that is the individual employee that's within this fund itself does some overtime work for the U.S. Marshals, and that is a reimbursement for that service. Again, for the salary standpoint, which is your next items, you have a 50% of one lieutenant and 100% of two officers being directly allocated into the fund. Is there any questions about those items before I move forward? No? Okay. The next items we'll look at are operations, maintenance, and just general operations overall. First line item is for financial lease, Pacific Leasing. That is the new lease for the PD fleet purchased. We had a total of 11 vehicles purchased. About 2 were unmarked vehicles and 9 were patrol vehicles. Going on to the fire department, you see some supplies purchases. You have 2 CalCard transactions. One of them being the accountability system. If you can go and explain that, Rob, if you don't mind.
So the first charge there is for components that relate to our accountability system. And what that is each of our members have tags. And when they report to duty in the morning, each of our units has a unit tag. So when each member who reports at the beginning of a shift takes their tags and clips into that unit, that identifies them to that unit. So whenever they respond to a fire or other large incident where we're looking to keep track of all the personnel on scene, that's what that's for.
So that is the first line item in the amount of $298.78. The second line item is actually for a New York hook and extinguisher harness. That was purchased by the fire department. Those 2 items totaling the amount that you see there in the amount of $312.66. So moving forward, you'll see some professional services of NH Advisors. NH Advisors is our financial advising firm that we utilize for big projects that we're looking to go out to bond. The particular items they're expensing here of $10,000 was for the fire training center, or the remodel that we're going through that process. So you see that expense.
You say fire training?
Sorry. Fire station training, our fire station remodel.
So you first said fire training center, and now we're saying fire.
Sorry, it's the station remodel.
So it's the station on A Street.
That's correct. So same expenditures you see is for the station remodel. The RM there was a design group that was doing design and architecture for the remodel itself. Okay. The next item you see is for the lease payment for the fire truck for $59,000. The next items you'll see after that is for the fire operations department for training and education. So you can see a good amount of training. They have an overall budget, I want to say, of 10,000 that is allocated just for training. So these are the majority of classes and the trips and travel and per diems that they utilize to go to the training. Is there any questions? Sure.
The new, brand new Smeel engine that's downtown.
And then, so there's a substantial amount of money spent on design for the new fire station?
That's correct.
Yes.
So, and I mean, I was there for a day on the 4th. What all did that design work accomplish? I mean, is it structural design? Are they looking at structural integrity or?
All of that was related to the design, all the design planning that was going to go into the remodeling of that station. Now, all of that, as of right now, has been put on hold while we're evaluating the proper location before we invest any more money into that project. We're evaluating if it's in the right or proper location.
So it took us 25,000, almost 26,000 to figure that out. Playing devil's advocate, I know.
I can't speak to, I can only speak to after I got here. Once I came on board as a fire chief, I started evaluating services and realizing that responding out of that station, we were not making our response time standards, national standards on the north end of town. So before we went any further than what we already had done, presented that to council and was determined that we should put a stop to the project for right now.
So the cost of design actually costed more than what you're seeing here. What you're seeing is a Measure S expense that hit this account.
No, I get that. My concern is we've spent a ton of money to redesign a station that has been deemed inadequate for many, many years for just what our fire chief was talking about, response time. So it doesn't seem like it's I mean, I'll be the one to say it. It seems like if it was coming out of my pocket, it would be a questionable expense if I'm gonna spend 25,000 on a consultant to decide whether we should, remodel, move, it's adequate, it's inadequate, when we've known for years it's been inadequate.
Okay.
Oh, no, I get it. I just, yeah.
I mean, for the sake of this conversation, as a Measure S committee, those are expenditures that were allocated to this fund.
And then, I know, I think we broached this one time previously. Who decides if the money comes from Measure S or from general fund money assigned to the department?
City manager and department heads.
And then, is there a chance where some of these we can actually see some receipts at future meetings?
Sure. Is there a specific line item that you're looking for?
No, I know Measure P is asked to do that as well, to see receipts so they have full disclosure, so they can actually see receipts, what's being written on the receipts, handles, things like that.
Well, I can give you a little more detail as far as the general ledger itself, and we can start in that measure, in that sense.
That's fine. I'd still like to see the actual receipt.
Okay, well, what we can do is, because there is quite a few, we can give you a more detailed ledger, and you can pull a sample, and I'll be happy to provide that to you.
That's fine. I think if we're gonna be transparent, when people are saying, hey, are we spending money the right way? I can look at a receipt and say, yeah, this is what it went for. We bought, 5, self-contained breathing apparatus, or 5 sets of printouts, or 6 rifles as a PD, or new radios, or something like that. Because when it just says Cal card charge.
Yeah, and that's why I'm giving you the description of what those transactions are.
I understand. I don't doubt what you're saying, but in my mind, I feel better saying, okay, well, that's what the charge is for, and instead of later there being a speed bump, it's gonna say, oh, it actually went over here.
Sure.
Instead of
So for transparency's sake, the best way to do it is to do a straight sample, a request of, show me these line items. As an auditing standpoint, I can give you a ledger saying this is what has transpired, and you tell me the transactions you'd like to pull from them, as I can give you the support. That way, if not, then I'm giving you a book of transactions, and you don't want to go through that.
Setting, obviously, I'll get a time that works for you and come in and spend 20, 30 minutes. Does that work?
Sure. Is there any other questions?
Cool. I can't be the only one. Come on, help me out. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing.
Communications? Okay. Thank you.
benefits on police support, benefits under police operations, are those benefits for the same employees? Because they're like, under police support, those are 80% of salaries, and under police operations, those are 67%.
Well, as a
How are those
benefit,
benefits allocated?
the benefits themselves can vary from the individual. For a prime example of that, as a large variance between the two, would be an employee that would be a PEPRA member versus a classic member. So their actual pension would be a lot higher for their expenditures than it would for the PEPRA employee. So that was why you would see a gauge in that sense where you see a variance. It's not going to be always be apples to apples. You could have an officer in there that's a higher step level, so their pension expense could be higher. You could have an employee in there where their health insurance was actually they're choosing a larger plan than the other individual, or they're at a lower tier, so they're paying maybe 90%, where the other employee or the city pays 100%. So it can vary in that sense.
So it looks like the salaries, the PD is allocated to one lieutenant and 2% or two officers.
That's correct.
Are they random officers? Are they the same officers for 12-month cycle?
They are the same officer for the 12-month cycle. I will say coming into the budget year they were currently in, we did switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
And that's just a switching of individuals between departments or moving them out of this fund because a good example is the U.S. Marshal's Office. We try to make this report as clean as possible so you don't have reimbursements and things of that nature. So we'd like to move that individual or that duty out into maybe the general fund or some other fund where so you have more of a clear cut financial information coming out of it. The revenues coming in are most likely just going to be the Measure S funds, the sales tax coming into the fund.
So the benefits would not only encompass health insurance, but also retirement benefits, is that as well?
Uh,
That-
The benefits section itself is pretty much your taxes, health insurance, life insurance, pension. It's incorporated into all those benefits.
But it would only apply to the lieutenant and those two officers, is that correct?
That's correct. Only staff members that are directly allocated.
And those are two different officers every year.
Those are for the most part, I think last 2 years it would have been the same. I think this year is the 1 year we actually changed it.
Yes.
How do taxes come into play? You mentioned taxes, and how does taxes come into play with benefits?
Because the city is paying taxes on their behalf, so it is a benefit,
And then,
such as Social Security, FICA, things of those
and
nature.
then the lieutenant, I get the officers, are they senior?
For the sake of this, we just keep it as officers.
Okay, so it's not like somebody's been here 10 years versus 2 months or a median?
That it has nothing to play on how we choose the individuals to go in there, whether it's a senior
Does have to do with what their salary range is, though.
no, it could be two officers, random officers. It could just be two straight individuals.
See, then that would fluctuate. If it's two random officers, then that could fluctuate, whereas we have some officers that are.
Well, that's why we go through the budget process and it chose.
Hold on just a second. I'm trying to learn this too, just listen more. So we have officers that are E-step, right?
Correct.
That are top tier. We have officers that are A-step that are brand new. So if we're saying it's two random officers, then that number potentially is gonna fluctuate year to year.
That's correct.
So how do we determine two random officers?
It's more of the budget process. That's why they've been consistent with the same employees. Again, the reason
All of those employees.
the reason that we've chosen to move one of the officers out is because of the marshal reimbursement. That otherwise they most likely would have stayed there. So it's been pretty consistent as far as the selection of the employees.
So that's a pretty consistent percentage. In terms of police support, I'm always gonna see 80% for benefits and always about 2/3 for benefits under police operations. Is that the ratio you maintain?
I don't gauge it as far as the benefits and overall. I look as the total package of the employees coming in and out. Yeah. So I don't look as a gauge of how much benefits are we going to put in there. It's more of how much is the overall employee going to cost the city in this fund as a 50% allocation.
And I'm not trying to exceed my 3 minutes, but just, as a historical matter, in terms of the A Street Police Station, I remember when Chief Kane came to the council and really sold it to the council on the basis of, the garage part where the trucks were coming in, where the engines were coming in was very dangerous. People had their turnouts there, they were getting, corrupted, they were getting polluted, it was dangerous, carcinogens, it was a life safety issue. And so I think he was more focused on the life safety rather than the response time. Council went along with his recommendation. We had Chief Peterson come in, take a look at everything again, which is to his credit, and he came to council and said,
that wasn't a determination of the consultant. That was a determination of the new chief coming in and assessing the project.
No, I get that, but we still spent $30,000 talking about a remodel of a fire station. Not, I'm kicking a dead horse, but it just seems like a lot of money to figure out something we already need. It's like the police department. We've done this in asbestos for over years. So to have a consultant come and say, oh yeah, there's asbestos here. Okay. So, just my 2 cents.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other oral communication? Other business or comments?
No.
Chief? You heard me? And I call this meeting adjourned at 5:48.
Thank you.